Wait a minute, Cameron, you got to count us down, man.
5, 4, 3, 2.
Welcome back to the table, where we gather for good conversation about faith, life, and what God's growing among us. This week, we're talking to Angela about pruning. Pruning is a hard image. Something gets cut back and something familiar changes. And that can be real hard, even impossible for some people. Jesus says in John 15, "I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine grower." And he's talking about branches being tended and cared for so they can bear fruit. We're not talking about pruning as punishment. It is not punishment. We're talking about pruning as love and tending, and as the strange mercy of God making room for life. And we have the perfect guest for that conversation. Messiah has been home to Angela for a long time. She's one of those people who shows up when there's a need, and if she had a catchphrase, it would be, not "I'm fine." It would be, "What can I do to help?" She served 2 back-to-back terms as church council president, including during the calling of a pastor. That was me, and I'm grateful for that. And her family story is woven into Messiah's story too, because her dad also served on church council. Angela, we're really grateful to have you here at the table today.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Angela, thanks for being here today. I want to begin with your roots here.
Okay.
When did Messiah become more than just a church for you? When did you remember it becoming your home?
Probably in the early to mid 90s. We joined in 87, Reformation Sunday. But still I was young enough that, I was still trying to figure out what my call was and what I was supposed to do. So I would say probably not until the early to mid 90s.
What did that feel like for you?
Peaceful.
Peaceful.
Because I didn't have to wonder what I was doing. I knew where I belonged.
And I wonder, when you think about those early memories or those formative years, what did Messiah give you?
A place to try things. And if I fell flat on my face, they still gave me grace and said, well, what if you do it this way? Or let's see how we can make it work.
I was going to say I have a hard time imagining you fall on your face, but we've all kind of seen it.
Oh, I have literally fallen on my face before.
So help me understand, what are a couple of those things? Is there a particular memory in your mind where you say, you know what, that didn't work out so well for me, but then folks here at the church were like, no, we're there for you.
I can't think of a specific thing, but way back in ancient days of yore, I was youth coordinator here. And so we would try different things. Like, we did the 30-hour family, well, it was more like 26, but and we decided we wouldn't do that again, that there were other ways we could serve the hungry.
Your dad served as church council president, and later you served in that same role. What did you inherit from him about loving church and serving God's people?
I think I inherited his gift of patience. That man could have given Job a run for his money. I mean, he did raise me and my sister.
That's incredible. I could have learned something about that. What did you have to learn for yourself once you were the one carrying that weight?
That people don't expect me to be perfect.
Oh.
I just felt like the Messiah family just expected me to do my best, that I didn't have to be perfect.
Oh, really? Sorry, I didn't mean to touch you. That's interesting, because I have felt, I'll be honest with you folks, I have often felt like perfection is expected, which is interesting because I keep hearing, don't be a perfectionist, don't control too much. But then I feel like the moment that we let these guards down or we have these little bumbles or mistakes, then it sounds like everything's coming undone. Help me to understand, when I'm feeling that pressure, as a new pastor, and you as somebody who's been doing this, who's been leading in a church, how do I let that go? How do I learn to just hear it as constructive and not criticism?
You need to surround yourself with people who care and will be your sounding board, or as Andrew Jackson had his kitchen cabinet. Man, I sound like a dork.
Sometimes faithfulness is handed down to us, and sometimes we have to learn to live it in our own season. One of the things that people know about you is that when there's a need, you show up, and you don't always make a big production. You don't always make a big production about it. Where do you think that comes from?
My dad and my mom, and it even goes back to my grandparents, that I come from a long line of people who, while some of them might not have been churchgoers, they believed in helping those less fortunate. But you did it because it was the right thing to do, not because you'd get kudos or applause.
Yeah.
Yeah. Has showing up always felt like something that's been life-giving for you? Or have there been seasons of your life where it's felt really heavy, but you showed up anyway?
There's been seasons where, maybe not heavy, but I felt like I was going through the motions. But in those seasons, still showing up, even though I was going through the motions, gave me solace and comfort because I knew this was a place that I was loved and cared for.
Yeah.
That's actually an interesting point, and it's a real big question for folks in the church too, because we talk a lot about serving, and serving is holy for sure, but there's also a difference between being faithful and being exhausted. Did your time in leadership change the way that you think about saying yes?
Absolutely.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about that?
I have now gotten to the point, and I have friends that are proud of me for doing this, but there are times that I'll say, let me think about that. Or, as my friend likes to say, let me talk to Jesus about that.
Is that a friend that we would know here?
Perhaps.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
Hang on, time out. We're getting a little feedback, guys. All right.
Okay. Sometimes pruning is really about what's getting removed from the church, and sometimes it's more about what's getting removed in us. The need to do everything, which is something I can relate to. The feeling that if we don't look like it's all together, it's falling apart. I know for me, when I stepped into a role recently, I had to step away from a career. And that was really hard for me to prune that away from my life. But then I learned that that was making room for growth in other areas. Serving 2 terms back to back as council president during a pastoral transition and a call process, that's a lot to carry. What felt heaviest during that season for you?
Trying to do it when my father was going through his health issues before he passed away, and trying to balance what I felt like I needed to be here at Messiah and being the daughter that could take care of things.
So trying to do it all.
Yeah, I have that. I know people will find that hard to believe, but if there's an issue, I must fix it, and I must fix it now.
I think everybody kind of feels like that sometimes. I know I definitely do. Like every time somebody brings me a concern or a criticism here at the church, or something that could be a little bit better, I instantly go into like, how do we fix that? How do we make that better? We have a new person sitting in on our podcast today, Sarah Baker, actually, and just as she was asking about her role here, I said, just think about what we can do to make it better. I think we all carry that. During a pastoral transition, especially, congregations can carry a lot of things at one time: hope, anxiety, grief, opinions, love and fear and opinions and expectation and more opinions.
Everybody has an opinion.
So many opinions.
Yeah, they're just like like souls. Everybody's got one.
Yeah, sure. Let's go with that.
So what did that whole season, when you think about 2 years, and I don't know a whole lot about the pastoral transition, but I know it had some ups and downs and some surprises. What did that season teach you about Messiah, about this community that you call home?
That when we have to, we can visibly come together. We're always together. Don't get me wrong. But during the transition time, if there was a need, miraculously, it would be filled. And I might not have known about it until after it was taken care of.
What did that time teach you about yourself?
That I have to take time for myself. And I know that sounds too someone who's trying to be a recovering Martha,
Yup.
that sounds very self-serving. But you have to take time for yourself, because if you're not good for yourself, you're not good for anybody else.
Amen. Were there moments when you felt the difference between trying to hold the church together and trusting God to hold the church together?
Uh-huh,
Can you tell us about that?
uh-huh. My eyes might sweat. My father's celebration of life service was the day before a council meeting.
Yeah.
And I was going, I can do this. His service was over in Crossville. I can get up early in the morning and I can be back. About 6 o'clock that Saturday night, I called Michelle Wilson, who a lot of people know was my vice president, and I said, so that offer to run the meeting tomorrow, is that still open? And she went, yes. I went, okay. I said, God, you've got this. That was a time where I knew it was too much.
Can you tell us about a time when you didn't know if things were going to come together? When you had just tried your best and you said you had to say, God, this is in your hands now?
Yes, it was through the call process. We went through several viewees rather, and for whatever reason, it didn't pan out. And finally, I got to the point where, I was praying that somebody would say yes so I wouldn't have to find a new call committee. But also, you know what, guys? God will send us who he intends for us to have.
I'd like to meet him.
So would I.
For sure.
That stuff matters. The work matters, the meetings, the decisions matter, the process matter, attitudes matter. And still, finally, our church family belongs to Christ. Sometimes pruning is the moment that God cuts away the illusion that everything actually depends on us. And I think that is most often the type of pruning that I experience that can feel the hardest, when I realize that everything doesn't matter on me. This church was here 70-something years before I was here, and by the grace of God, it'll be here 70 years after I'm gone.
Amen.
So did you ever feel personally pruned by that season of leadership? Did you feel like something was being cut away from you so that something new could grow?
Yes, prior to being council president, I was chair of disciple and chair of fellowship.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I inherited fellowship from my parents. But I had to give those up. I felt like I had to give that up because, and this is my personal opinion, if the council president is focused on small things, they can't be focused on the big picture. And sometimes the big picture needs to be looked at before you take care of the brush strokes.
We have a new sort of focus, a renewed focus on shared ministry sort of in our congregation and in our life together at this point. And I think what you're talking about really sort of hits home at that too. One of the things that I noticed right away when I came to this church was there's already a spirit of shared ministry in the air. There's so much ownership that happens with folks around here. I'm grateful to see that, and I'm grateful for folks like you and others who have continued, or who have always, I don't know about always, but who have planted those seeds and sort of trod that path for us. Thank you.
You're welcome.
When we think about pruning, though, people really rush to the fruit. They want to talk about the fruit. But pruning still means something's getting cut. What in that season felt like a loss?
The fact that I couldn't call on my dad for help. And maybe not help isn't the right. We joke, some of us around here jokingly refer to him as the unofficial sounding board of church council. And so once he passed away, I couldn't pick up the phone and go, oh my stars, do you know what they've done?
Yeah.
I get it, but what about a little more personally? What did you have to change about the way that you behave as a church person? You can't go into a church council sideways, right?
I think it was
What did you have to let go?
the fact that I always had to take care of everything and I always was right. It had to be right.
have the need to have to be right.
Yes,
I think that can be our greatest sin.
because, I've come to realize the world won't fall apart if I drop a ball. It might make a ripple, and it might be uncomfortable, but the world won't fall off its axis, and it probably won't matter in 5 years.
It's hard to accept that. I feel my own eyes getting a little watery just thinking about what it's like for me to realize I actually am not in control. But to release that though, right?
Right, but I want you and everybody else to know that it's not easy.
Yeah.
Pruning, while it's necessary, is sometimes painful.
How did you make peace with the choices that you wouldn't have chosen on your own?
I had to lean into my faith and know that these choices, I was doing the best I could for God's kingdom. And sometimes I felt like I dropped the ball, and other times I felt like I was leading the parade.
Talk to me a little bit more about God's kingdom. What does that look like to you? And at least you can think about Messiah. Like, how do you see God's kingdom coming to fruition here in this place?
I see God's kingdom come. We're starting to get more younger families with young children come in. And for the most part, those children are loved and cared for and are respected and loved. And so I see that in the interactions between our more seasoned members and our younger members.
Yeah.
Church leadership is loving folks through disagreements. How do you stay connected when decisions are hard?
I have to, for me, I do the best I can, to make sure that that person knows that even though we might not agree, I still see them as a beloved child of God.
Right. Families have disagreements.
Yeah, I mean,
disagreements happen.
It's like, if you're part of a family, nobody gets along 100%. Like every family has that crazy uncle.
Right.
Was there ever a moment when you had to choose patience over being understood?
Yes.
Can you tell us about it?
How much information do you want me to share?
How about no names?
Okay. There was a time when we were going through a change in our finance team. And people were asking questions and were saying that they did not see our former treasurer in the light we were talking about. And I wanted to go, that's because he didn't show it to you. And I finally got to this, well, I'm glad that you didn't see that, but I need you to have faith that this process is what the Lord intends for us to do, even though it's painful, and I'd rather would have had a root canal without anesthesia.
Yeah, sometimes people only see the decision. They don't see like the prayer that goes behind it, the care and the worry, like all the behind the scenes stuff. And, you're trying to do right by everyone in the situation in the church. Did that season change the way that you see grace?
I think it's changed this way I view myself, needing to make sure that I share grace with others. Because some people have said in certain situations, I can't believe you're this calm about it. Well, if I want somebody to show me grace, I have to be willing to show grace to others, regardless of whether it's easy or not.
Yeah. I want to shift gears a little bit.
Okay.
So you've talked about your service as our church president, and you served for a long time in that role, really visible. And then eventually you stepped out of that role. Can you tell us what stepping away has been like?
Actually, it's been kind of freeing.
Oh, let's talk more about that. How is it freeing to give up control?
Because now, if somebody comes to me with a question or concern and I don't have the answer, you know what? I'm not council president anymore. I think you ought to bring this up to Crystal or Mark.
What did it feel like to release that responsibility?
Actually, to be honest, after the rough season we had, just after Pastor Josh came for about 6 weeks, it was very freeing and liberating. It's kind of nice to go, I don't have the answer for you. Let me direct you where you need to go.
I remember that. You stood up from the table and you were like, all right, Crystal. You went,
Yeah.
I'm going downstairs.
Yep.
I think that's actually an important word or a couple of words for all of us, especially now in this season. Freedom and liberation. About every 6 weeks, I preach a sermon called Jesus Means Freedom. And I think I'm on Jesus Means Freedom 9 or 10 right now. And I love the idea that it's just flipped on its head when you think about giving up. You think about having control means power, but there's real power in stepping away from the control. And I'm learning that. It's kind of cool to do it alongside with my congregation.
And it's not, I'm sure you found out it's not easy and it's not always comfortable.
No, it's never comfortable, first of all, and it's never easy. But once you realize what that's like, and you start to build those, it's like muscle memory. Once you start to build those muscles, it becomes like a natural place to live. Sometimes we serve by stepping in, and sometimes we have to serve by stepping back. Those are both faithful and hard and holy. Now that you're on the other side of those council president years, what fruit do you see now that maybe you couldn't see while you were in the middle of it?
How we've started to care for one another more. We've always been a caring congregation, but I think we're starting to be more intentional in how we care for one another.
Are there places that you still feel the cut, even as you see the growth?
Yes, in our youth program. But that's it's not because of anything we've done wrong, it's just we're an aging congregation with the exception of, like I mentioned earlier, the newer families with young children coming in. And they're younger, so they're not quite what society calls youth. They're still kiddos. So there's a fine line trying to minister the right way for the right age, to make it age appropriate.
Yeah,
Definitely.
you're actually hitting the nail on the head right there, because one of the things I think for church ministry, not for the ministry of Jesus Christ, but for church ministries to stay relevant, churches have to evolve. You have to change, and oftentimes that happens. We think back, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we did it this way, and we had 200 people in the sanctuary. But what we don't realize is we're talking about totally different times, totally different contexts, and what I've learned in returning to this congregation is a totally different ethos, a totally different congregation that I'm returning to. I think I already know where you're going to go with this, but I wonder, what gives you hope when you think about all the changes that you may have experienced over time, all of the stuff that's going on right now? What gives you hope?
Because through change comes growth. And in order for us to be a viable member of West Knoxville and the surrounding area, we have to be willing to do that change.
We have to think about what's sustainable. What does sustainable ministry look like? What is sustainable? Exactly.
What would you say to someone who loves the church deeply but feels tired from carrying a lot?
It's okay to let it go. If it's what God truly intends to happen, He will send somebody to pick it up. And if you only need to set it down for a season and then come back to it, that's okay too. And it's also okay if you drop it and you say good riddance and I'm done.
And no one picks it up.
As painful as that is, that's okay too.
I think that's one of the things that I've really loved about Messiah and about church work in general, just working in churches over the last 11 years now, is God provides us with an abundance of what we need to do this ministry with one another and for one another. And sometimes it takes somebody dropping something and saying, oh shoot, that's not what I intended. It takes that drop, or it takes the pruning for people to say, oh man, I really can trust God here. There really was somebody else who did that. We recently have discovered some really cool talents in the congregation just from doing things differently. And is that going to be the same thing every time? No, I have a feeling we're going to run into some doozies, right? The wrong person gets in the wrong role, or where a project doesn't get finished. I think that's totally okay. One of the things that we get to model in the church is when there are mistakes, when we do drop the ball, we can model good behavior and say, you know what, that's perfectly okay. We didn't see failure. Instead, what we saw was a growth opportunity. I have one final question for you. When you think about Messiah's future, what do you hope we're being pruned for?
to be able to grow and to make a difference. And it doesn't have to, and as those people who have read articles or heard me talk, it doesn't have to be some big grandiose thing we do. It's the little things. Because it's kind of like, when you go skipping stones at the lake. It only hits once, but the ripples keep going.
Yeah.
Angela, thank you. What I hear in your story is that pruning is part of how God teaches us to live without owning, how to serve without controlling, and how to lead without pretending that everything depends on us. You've helped this congregation through some tender seasons, and we're especially grateful for the fruit of that faithfulness.
And maybe that's a word for all of us. The church belongs to Christ. We serve it, we love it, we tend it, we show up when there's a need. But finally, God's the vine grower. God's at work in what's growing. God's still at work in what's changing. And God will still be at work in what gets cut back.
That's the promise underneath pruning. It's not punishment. It's not abandonment. It's the careful work of God tending the vine for life. So as we leave the table today, may we trust the one who tends us. May we release what is not ours to carry forever. And may we keep looking for the fruit God is already growing among us. Thanks for joining us at the table, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.